Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and always my pleasure.
Now, Frank, why do you feel it was necessary to view this opinion?
Oh, well, our country is going down, and things are getting worse. And it's a downward spiral from the time we gained independence in 1960. And we've had the worst of times because of bad leadership. And our country is seen as if it's meant for the plunder of political players and persons who think that the Nigerian project is meant to serve their interest alone. And it's not restricted only to Nigerians, but to the entire world who see Nigeria as its resources that are meant only for exploitation. So who cares about the people? Who cares about using the resources of the country for the benefit of the people and for the future of the Nigerian children? It seems as if our leaders don't care. And all they care about is how to capture power, how to win elections by hook or crook. So looking at the future of this country, it becomes very disturbing to think that this country is on its knees today. Our Nigerian armed forces can't fight the insurgents anymore. Boko Haram is on the rise. Insecurity is creating a state of uncertainty in business and in life in general. So, and again, Nigerians, unfortunately, are being pretentious about it, going about their lives normally, but secretly bearing in their mind a whole lot of fear and uncertainty.
Now, Frank, what proposals do you have that can be put in place to change people's perceptions?
First, let us have a national ethos that wants to build a country like other countries have done. You can't build a country by exploiting it. You can only build it with some measure of sacrifice, with commitment, with people joining the army, not because they don't have anything to do, not because they don't have any other job, but simply because they want some pay. And if the situation gets difficult, they run away in the midst of difficulty and attacks by Boko Haram. People shouldn't get into government because they want to plunder resources. They should get into government because they want to serve. What the solution is simple. Let us have a leadership that can rally around Nigerians, that can galvanize the population through nation building. We are not building this country. We are tearing it apart, and it seems as if we don't care because we believe that the Nigerian project is for the gain, and if it doesn't work, we all go back to our tribal cocoons. But we must realize that that's not how the countries that many Nigerians are running to today in the name of Japa syndrome, what they are running to today, those countries were not built by plundering. They were built by sacrificial leadership, by commitment, by application, of knowledge and technology, and true patriotism. But what we have with corruption on the rise, with state capture, with the judiciary that is no longer functional, there is no trust in the electoral system, and what we have is a state of disillusionment that is being hidden with all sort of PRO messages. We can't continue like this. So there has to be a national rebirth, either by starting with a constitution that gives power to the people so that the people can determine their destinies, and not this concentration of power in Abuja that doesn't serve the interests of the people. The entire country of over 200 million people being policed from the cities, from the country center, that's ineffective. Governors are elected, given political power, but they are unable to organize security to protect the people that put them into power. That's a problem. Our country needs to be sincere that it wants to be a country in the Committee of Nations, that it can boast it takes care of its own people. Well, as we see, there is a serious disparity between the resources, the natural resources we have, the human resources we have, and the state of affairs in our country that is on its knees because of insecurity, that is so badly governed, that is so poor. The Nigerians at the time was referred to as the poverty capital of the world. It shouldn't be. With our oil resources, you see, the Human Development Index is an abysmal state. So we need to ask ourselves, if you ask me for a solution, the solution is in us. We need to wake up and say that we want to build our country, our own country. Nigerians don't have a habit of obeying laws. We are in the rat race. competing with one another to disobey the laws in clamor and for plunder, for corruption, for doing the wrong things. There is need for a national reorientation that galvanizes the people into building a country that we can proudly say is the giant of Africa. Right now, we are an embarrassment, a huge embarrassment to Africa, and I hate to say it because I'm so proud of this country. Because when I grew up in this country, born in the 70s, in the 80s, we thought that we were the hope of the black race in the entire world. But today, we are a big shame and an embarrassment indeed.
What sort of reaction have you received for your comments and your thought process and your proposal so far?
And that's the very dangerous thing when people just agree with you and then they move on. Yes, I've seen a lot of commendations saying, yes, you're stating the obvious. So if you're stating the obvious, what next? It's not enough for us to simply now begin to, assuage ourselves with the fact that, we hear these words, these are words of hope, but no decision, no resolution to say, let us do something. And I understand the difficulty. The difficulty is that we lack leadership. I can say that at the time we once had leadership, we missed the opportunity. Maybe under the military, which could have been a situation, an opportunity for us to truly, have what I call, a sort of opportunity to build the country afresh after the Civil War. But all of those opportunities were missed. Imagine the June 12, 1993 elections, which would have ushered in democracy so smoothly. But it was annulled by the military. And since then, the state of our political life has been in a topsy-turvy situation. And I think that we must first of all come to ourselves. As it is, Nigeria is a plunder zone and it's a problem for our future.
Well, Frank, on a different matter, Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso left South Africa to return home to Nigeria last night after years of facing charges of rape and human trafficking, of which he was ultimately acquitted. What is the legal fraternity saying in Nigeria about this case?
Well, if that matter had been in Nigeria, probably it wouldn't have taken that long. And the man may not have been charged to court, because if he had excised a lot of connections in Nigeria, you either get prosecuted or not prosecuted, depending on how connected you are to the forces, to the powers that run the day. So we looked at the issues closely. We are considering, given the reports that we hear, that there seem to be a lot more compromises. It's important that some of these persons, if they were in Nigeria, they would have operated above the law. But it's quite interesting that he indeed faced trial. But to think that the same problem of corruption that is associated with prosecutorial discretion has also been identified in this case, in the sense that the judge was so express in saying that the prosecution bungled this case. I mean, it was simply stopped short of saying what normally happens here when you are able to compromise the prosecution as an offender, as an alleged offender, and then the entire case is lost. I think it's a good thing that he's leaving South Africa now to Nigeria. Unfortunately, I thought that the appellate process would actually be activated while he's still in South Africa. His coming to Nigeria will probably be the end of the entire matter, because I doubt if ever any form of extradition would happen.
So speaking of extradition, now with the appeals process coming into play, the NPA is insisting that they are going to appeal. And what sort of steps need to be taken for him to be extradited back to South Africa? And how long of a process will this take, more than likely?
I can assure you that it's quite an uncertain process. You will have to, approach the courts here, and the man will activate every remedy that is available to him under the fundamental rights, fundamental human rights, protection mechanism in Nigeria. So the extradition processes are usually not easy. Even for drug offenders, known drug offenders, for them to be extradited to a country that is so influential like the United States hasn't been very easy to obtain in Nigeria. So I can say that it's not something that will be very easy. It's not also something that will take that will be quick. We're looking at number of years, say a minimum, an average of 4 years for the extradition process to be concluded. However, if there is enough political will on the part of the Nigerian authorities, particularly on the part of the Attorney General of the Federation of Nigeria, the process might be expedited indeed, but I very much doubt, because if you have money like Timothy Omotosho does have, and influence in as a spiritual leader, it will be very difficult to extradite him from Nigeria.
Now, Frank, just in wrapping up very quickly, Omotosho's wife is still in South Africa and is also now under investigation into whether she is in South Africa legally. What is your view on this? Are we likely to see her also leaving and following her husband if her documentation obviously isn't up to date and up to scratch?
I think that's most likely to happen. And again, I think it's safer for them, so to speak, if they leave South Africa and come to Nigeria, where there's a much liberal criminal justice system, unlike where they will have in South Africa, where the investigation might be much more thorough, especially in the wake of the public outrage that has greeted the acquittal. So if those papers, apart from whatever the papers are, it would be safer for Omotosho and his wife, I would say, to come back to Nigeria. And
Frank, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Cheers.
That's a Nigerian lawyer, Frank Tietie, joining us on the line. It is 25 after 12 Central African time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo.